interstitial while we get this figured out.
I can hear you.
Oh, you can hear me.
Oh,
hey.
sweet Lord. Sorry about that. That's my fault.
Oh, no worries, man. No worries. So, it's 5 a.m. where you're at.
It is, yeah.
That's early.
Well, you go to bed, you take some melatonin around like 8:30, and then you lock yourself in a cold, dark room, and like you just do your best, I guess.
Okay, so you're already up for the day. Correct?
Yeah,
You didn't stay up all night.
Yeah, I get up. I've been getting up recently around 4 or 5 to sling beer off a truck.
Okay.
For money, because this is what academics do now.
Yeah.
I mean, the job market's terrible, but this is what I've always done. So in general, I'm just used to it. I don't know. How y'all doing? Y'all doing okay?
We're hanging in there.
We're hanging in.
Okay.
Yeah, we're hanging in there. I just got back from a nap, and I'm drinking my third pot of coffee in the last 24 hours. So
Jake's gonna start seeing Victorian child ghosts in like the next like.
Well, if it helps me stay up, then I would not oppose it.
If you start seeing like weird shit on the ceilings, crawling around or something, like that's time to take a break.
I did just take a nap though, while I ran off while Adam was talking to Kenzo. Because so Adam is an educator, or he was an educator.
La Familia.
Educator at heart now. Do what?
I'm also an educator, so family.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. And so they was talking about that stuff, and I just took a nap. So
I love Kenzo.
I don't know if it helped. I came out of my car about as tired as I went into it, but I took a nap anyway.
Well, I mean, okay, so there's this thing called the human body that requires some amount of rest. When y'all were talking yesterday, it was like, yeah, we're gonna go however many hours that we can. I'm just like, can one person go 54 hours without their brain starting to leak outside of their ears?
And if they can, should they?
Well, we know the answer to that question. The answer is no. The answer is no. But we are here for striking miners, which requires a little bit of sacrifice for workers. I can't think of anything better worth sacrificing years off my life for. So, I mean, that's union organizing, right? Taking years off the end of your life to try and get some gains now.
Amen.
That's right. So you're an academic. Talk to us about your academic stuff, and then we've got you for a couple hours, so I want to talk about your YouTube stuff, and maybe you can give us some pointers, because I was telling Adam before you came on, man, your production value is just like way up there, and ours is like way down here. Like you can, on our stream, you can kind of make out our face, occasionally you can hear what we're saying.
Here's the thing. I'd give an arm and a leg to have a union talk radio show. So we'll just reciprocity. We'll share tips. We'll talk that, because I mean, if there's anything I'd want to be doing, as everyone probably thinks, I'm not like Jake's weird uncle. We do kind of look alike. I knew we kind of looked alike, but now that we're sitting next to each other on a stream, hold on.
I really can see it.
There
we go.
There we go. Now I just need the mustache. Yeah, no, so I have always had like beard envy, because I have never been able to grow a beard or a mustache. I did shave for the stream, so that I look halfway presentable, but I can go like 3 days without shaving before you would notice.
Oh, honestly, me too. I can't. The reason why I have a mustache and not some disgusting monstrosity that comes out to my face here is just because I can't grow it. This
Well, I
is
can't even grow a mustache, man. Like,
Northern European, the Ostrogothic heritage or whatever is preventing us from having cool facial hair, and it's not fair.
yeah. Maybe by the time I'm like 30, I can grow a mustache. That's what I'm shooting for.
That's not bad. It's a good goal.
Yeah, good call. But what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be an astronaut. I want to be a doctor. Well, I'd like to have a mustache. That's Jacob's goal.
Can I just get a mustache at least? Like, this
Yeah.
is what the working class is asking for. It's not much. Like,
Right.
And they won't even fucking give us that.
I mean, come on.
We got to fight for that. Just a mustache.
So, your academic work, have you got are you like in a PhD program or have you got a PhD?
No, I am the twilight of a master's program, actually.
Okay.
I have 95% of my master's thesis finished. That last 5% has taken about 3 months, and it's not moving any faster. But yeah, I'm a historian, and I'm known as a labor history guy, which is really great. That's always been kind of like where my heart is, which is with the labor movement, labor history in the United States and in Europe in more contemporary periods. But I'm trained as a classicist because I grew up going to church and shit. So I started out at a Bible college for 2 years, and I took Greek and Hebrew, and like learned a lot about ancient like antiquity and ancient Rome in particular, and the emergence of early Christianity. And then when I transferred as an undergraduate to the University of South Florida, that's basically where I picked up. So I wrote an honors thesis on the Apostle Paul and Stoicism, and now I'm basically doing the same thing, but harder. It's a thesis on the formation of Pauline text and how texts, how the formation of the self, this human subject, manifests itself in a text, and how we can use that to better contextualize and understand the social world that the Apostle Paul was raised in. I talk about his education, and I talk about the relationships between. Basically, my argument is that these are formed in relationship in the sociocultural world. So I talk about, it's 3 chapters. I've got one on the relationships between teachers and students, another one between parents and children, mostly the pater familias figure in Roman culture, and then a third one on the relationships between masters and slaves. And I'm sure like 5 people are going to read it, and I'll have a degree when it's done. But that's my training. Yeah, I do some lecturing. I'm lucky enough to be one of those weird master students who gets invited to lecture places, and it's always on U.S. labor history. Almost always after, in the beginning and moving into the 20th century, post-Great Upheaval kind of labor history. I know artisanal histories of the working class in places like New York, and especially in the American South. But yeah, I spend most of my time talking. I spend all that time learning ancient languages, and just the working stiff comes back and haunts you in the best way. Yeah.
So why is it that you get invited on the lecture circuit to talk about labor history, like, but your thesis and your research is about like the Apostle Paul and stuff? So like, what is it that people are seeing from you that they're like, oh, I want to hear him give a lecture about labor history?
That's a really good question. I think it's just mostly my online content. I got really lucky when it came to building a really good audience that's been incredibly supportive, and that's kind of always looked out for me, but that has like, I basically have followed the lead of what people people started asking me about labor history online because I did union organizing, and because I was involved in like local worker struggle. People started asking for points of clarification. We started having discussion about the particularities of a working class history, what that means for working people, what that means for how we look toward the future, our political imaginary, as we could call it. And other than that, it's because, like, and this is actually the really valuable point. My advisors in my undergraduate degree have been incredibly supportive of everything that I've been trying to do, even before I started, hawking my wares online. And they knew pretty much before I did that this is something that I would be adept talking at. It was just one of those things that, like, I had always felt comfortable talking about it. I was always pretty adept at talking about it. And I didn't realize I was doing history or I was being an historian until I was it was a lot of me. I felt like I needed to be appropriately credentialed. I felt like I needed to be authoritative. This is what they teach you in academia, but the problem is that sometimes those metrics of authority, how we consider someone to be authoritative on a topic, like sometimes that goes beyond your actual training and it goes into your lived experiences. And like, if I've lived anything, it's labor. And so it was one of those things that, like, it just kind of started happening. And I'm like, apparently people want me to talk about this. And then you go back and you look and you say, oh, I've always been talking about this. It's always been close to me. It's always been a part of me. It's always been very important to me. And so I just kind of rolled with it. And I'm pleased with it. I'm much more pleased than anything that I could have come up with on my own. I have no idea what I'm doing, so.
Yeah, well, I'm really interested in both of those things, actually. I'm interested in learning more about the Apostle Paul, and I'm also interested in your personal story in the labor movement. So I think we're going to have time to dig into both of those. So, we're talking about your giving lectures on labor history. So, like, what was it that, like, got you involved in the labor movement? Like, were your parents union? Like, what was the industry that you were working in? Like, what set the stage for us when you started doing labor stuff?
Absolutely. So I do come from a union family, and it's not the one that people usually picture when they think about union families. I come from a family of firefighters. My dad was local 2546 on the Sun Coast in Florida. But my family, they're like a lot of people. There's a lot of people online who aren't close to the labor movement. I come from an incredibly conservative, very, very religious family. They're wonderful people. I adore them, but we don't see eye to eye on everything. But I remember this, and like it's so cliche. It feels like a story you made up retroactively, but I know that this happened because I've talked to my parents about it. But like, I remember what I knew about union dues growing up was that you pay them because you're never going to know when you need them. My dad was and he's the hardest working person I've ever met. I probably admire him more than anybody in the world. And he wasn't like, he wasn't filing ULPs. He wasn't taking people up on grievances. He wasn't doing his shop steward stuff, but he knew that this is something that's just important, and that solidarity with like the people in his crew, in his battalion in general, was something that like it was necessary to. There's something that we talk about in union organizing. There's what we call organic leadership. And for people who aren't familiar, it's this idea that like if you're standing in a room full of workers, and you're getting people to do something that they wouldn't normally do, to sign up onto a list to say that yes, they authorize this union, to sign onto a list to march onto the boss to negotiate for particular issues in their workplace. If you're doing solidarity unionism, if you're going for a contract, Like if you stand in a room and you look around and you propose something that's intimidating, there's someone in that room that everyone is going to look to. They may not physically be looking at that person, but there are people in the workplace who you would not expect it. Oftentimes they can be quiet. Oftentimes they don't jump into like volunteer for like union stuff, because sometimes they're not the union radicals. Those are mostly that's a shop steward position, that sort of a thing. People who are committed to the union, the idea of unionization, all of that stuff. But then there's organic leadership, which are just the kind of people you end up following in your workplace. That was my father. It was always him. He has, not to try and diagnose him without his permission, but I think he's always kind of had some kind of a learning disability. He could have been a captain. He was more than qualified for it, but he could not sit for exams. And so he just kind of formed into the position that he was in, as I think he was lieutenant by the time he retired. But like, he has this kind of quality, this organic leadership quality that everyone in my life I know looks to him when they're in trouble. And like even more than just purely like growing up in a union family, that's what brought me into the labor movement. Is my parents' honest, sort of real Christianity, which is not perfect, but like their service unto the least of these taught me more than anything that the way to live a meaningful and valuable life is in service to other people. And if there's a way, the way that I've interpreted this as getting involved with the labor movement, because I don't know, work is the place in which our sort of various struggles come to a head. It's the place that eliminates the barriers, these usual demarcations between who we are, that allows us to divide ourselves from each other as working people, and we intersect in this one point of conflict with the owning class. And this is why I always say that it's like, I don't care who you are, I think you deserve a union because you're a worker. And it's because there's this, everyone has this sort of like sense of this lack of a sense of belonging in our contemporary society. We're very atomized, individualized, and made to think that we're all on our own. And if you did something, if you don't have the things that you need at work, it's because you didn't bootstrap enough, you didn't pull hard enough, you didn't work enough. And I've always known that boss crap is a line of crap, because I come from a family of workaholics, and they're workaholics because everyone else was an alcoholic. And so they stopped that and started just like, let's be Protestant and like teetotalers, and like, let's not drink, and let's not do any of that stuff, and let's just work and see what comes from it. Now, I don't think that that's healthy. I don't think workaholism or hustle culture is a good thing, but it taught me that like show your deeds with your work and fight for other people. And like that's labor organizing, baby. Like like, so I don't know. Thank you, church.
Yeah, well, you were talking about the boss crap, and if you're not making enough, it's because you didn't bootstrap hard enough. And it sounded like you were about to go to something that Stephen Robbins said on the show a few weeks ago when he came on, which is that, he's a lawyer, he's an immigration attorney, and he's like, there's a pretty high ceiling for talented lawyers, or at least lawyers with good connections, right? You can make a pretty good amount of money being a good lawyer. He represents mostly farm workers, many of them undocumented. Yeah. And he said, there's a really low ceiling for farm workers. You can be the best, hardest working, most efficient farm worker in the country, in the world, and you might make $15 an hour.
Right.
Maybe, if you're lucky. And so that's how we know that like you were saying, that boss crap is crap. It's not worth it, it's not worth the paper it's written on or the oxygen they take to say it. It's just nonsense, because the hardest working, the best people, they don't always get what they deserve, and you've got these parasites at the top, like the CEO of the coal company Warrior Met, who is the same CEO that took the company into bankruptcy in 2015 before it was bought out by Warrior Met. Basically, they just changed the name of the company. Same CEO. He's making more than he ever has. And the coal miners are making less than they ever have. One of the coal miners said that he has lost $120,000 in the past 5 years just in lost wages from the old contract. If he had been making 2011 contract wages instead of 2015 contract wages, the difference between those two numbers are 120,000 over 5 years. That's a lot of money.
It's a ton of money.
And you know, and he's sitting there making $4 million a year, the CEO of Warrior Met. And again, the most that he's ever met. And so, you know, the boss crap, it is. It's just crap. So what did your organizing look like when you started out? Like what industries were you working in, and how kind of official or unofficial was your organizing? You know, all three of us are Wobblies here. So, you know, was your organizing initially more like solidarity unionism, or were you trying to get NLRB elections, or was there like a combination of the two? What did that look like?
Great question. It was a combination of the two. Sort of this bookend. My labor organizing has been bookended by solidarity organizing, which is what's been so valuable, I think, about the perspective that I've been able to gain. I'm very grateful for it. I started out in food service, like just about everybody close to our age. My first real job was, I come from one of those families where I was talking about my father. I come from one of those families to where sometimes you just wake up on a Saturday and your dad's there and he says, "We're going to work." And so you get in a truck and then you go to some construction yard and you sweep for 5 hours and put concrete into a wheelbarrow and take it to a dumpster. And that was probably my first job. And also doing church landscaping with him as well. I started doing that probably when I was 12, 13. But then I got a job in an arcade a month before I turned 15, which was not technically legal. But as a family friend, he really was like that job. That was probably the best job I've ever had, slinging pizzas in an arcade. And I did that for a year. And then I just ended up in a series of service and retail jobs, fast food, coffee, just like you name it. A lot of chains people are familiar with: Starbucks, Panera Bread Company, Burger King, Dairy Queen. I worked in a CD shop. I folded clothes at Bass. I hung drywall for a summer. I worked in a call center. The organizing was really, the rubber was hitting the road in food service. That's when I first started learning solidarity organizing. And then after I finished college, I was a 7th grade teacher for a little while. And so I was able to be a member of the Florida Educators Association. And I was able to learn internal organizing alongside of I was able to learn the particularities of internal organizing for a bigger union. And I learned how to sort of navigate your own contract, to understand as a worker, the sort of, you know, using the good old, like, you know, Staunton Lynn wobbly ethic of, like, you know, educating workers to be able to sort of like determine what they need in their workplace. And then after that, when I went to graduate school, I started doing now I just organize every workplace I'm in. That's what happens. But like, I got to grad school and we started organizing graduate students on campus here locally. That fell apart, unfortunately, thanks to some Trump NLRB stuff. And now with the Central Florida IWW, I do almost exclusively solidarity organizing, and see myself as well. We're getting ready to move here in about a month and a half. up to the Boston area, and honestly, I'm probably going to go internal there too. I don't know exactly what it is I'm going to be doing yet, but I'm thinking about probably just trying to drive for somebody. I drove a food truck for a while, like it was an old Doritos truck, and I used to help my dad deliver ambulances too, so I've driven big shit before. So I'll probably end up doing something like that. But my organizing, I also got into organizing via like electoral campaigns. And I did that work for years after college. I ran some campaigns, and I worked in how many states? 5 states, including Alaska and Vermont. I went and lived in Alaska for a year to work on electoral campaigns after college. I didn't know what I was doing. So I had an internship, and I'm like, screw it, I'll apply for this job, and I got it. And I'm like, I guess I'm going to Sitka. And so I went there and I did that. I learned a lot of that stuff, organizing from electoral campaigns as well. A lot of what not to do, a lot of how to not build a sustainable operation and organization, a lot of how not to build community, and how to alienate people by just trying to force them to make the same phone calls over and over and over again.
Right.
Yeah, so it's been like it's been a journey in a good way. I feel like I feel very blessed in terms of my perspective to have this weird mishmash of experiences, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I definitely think that makes sense, and I think that I think having a mishmash of experiences is very common among people in our age group. I have been fortunate that I have not had I have not had to go into terribly many different industries and learn too many different things. I've worked in the service industry. I was in one restaurant for 3 years, and I have been working for the federal government now for about 4 years, something like that. So those are the only 2 jobs that I've ever had, really. And other than you mentioned that you did landscaping for your church. I mowed the yard for the church that I went to from the time I was like 13 till when I was 18.
Yep.
And would you believe that I was doing it for free? My daddy would like pay me every other time, basically.
Yeah.
And would you believe that when I stopped doing it, they paid somebody to do it? Would you believe that?
Yes, I would. Unfortunately, yes, I can totally believe that.
I mow their yard for 5 years. They don't pay me a dime, and then which I didn't ask to be paid, so that's fine.
You shouldn't have to ask. You shouldn't have to ask. Pay the kid for mowing your goddamn lawn. Give me a break. Come on. Sorry.
We were me and my parents both were basically kind of counting that as part of our tithe kind of thing. We don't actually like count out 10%, I don't think, but both of us we were both sort of counting it as like our donation to the church, and so we weren't. I'm mostly going on at them, but it still was funny that as soon as I stopped doing it, there was like, oh man, we need to mow the yard. I guess we're gonna have to pay somebody. So, but yeah, I enjoyed it. They had a big yard. It's like 10 acres or something. So having to mow that every couple of weeks, that was on my mower, just getting to listen to music, listen to podcasts. It was a good time.
I had a CD player. I had to use a Discman or whatever.
Same.
You have the skip protection, but then it like drains.
It still skipped.
Yeah, it still skips, and it drains the hell out of your batteries.
Yeah.
And you got
you'd be like halfway done, and the CD player is gone. Now you got to run inside for more batteries, and then you're out of batteries. And it's just bullshit that you avoided.
I just want to listen to Further Seems Forever while I mow this lawn or whatever. Like, let me listen to my second wave emo while I mow this goddamn lawn.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough that I was able to have a Walkman instead of a CD player.
Ooh, yeah, dope.
I had a Walkman MP3.
Yeah.
So talk to us about your YouTube videos. Your YouTube videos are pretty interesting because they're like the intersection of like video games and theology and history and lefty theory. Uh, that's pretty neat. I haven't actually been able to watch a whole lot of them because like I feel like I wouldn't get them because I'm not much of a video game guy. And I've never actually played any of the video games that you've done videos on. So, I've tried to watch a few and I'm like, I don't know what he's talking about. So I'll just let you explain it to me here now that I've got you.
Yeah. So I like to do I like to do readings of culture in light of a lot of the theoretical stuff I read in academia. I was like any good person who was born at the end of the 1980s and grew up in the 90s. My third parent was television, so I watched a lot of TV. We played video games growing up. I come from one of those puritanical households to where I wasn't allowed to play them on the weekdays. I was only allowed to play on weekends, and which actually wasn't a terrible move. Actually, I think they.
In retrospect, not the worst idea.
I mean, right? I could have very easily. I have a very addictive personality. I could have very easily blown all of my time sitting in front of the Super Nintendo or the PlayStation, but it's just like I always was sort of like straddling these sort of lines when it came to the stuff that I was interested in. Is part of the reason why I wanted to study history in college is because the secret is that history is all of the disciplines. And I always was a very avid reader. I always have read constantly. It's just a habit now. I read every day something. I'm reading several things at once usually. And this it led me to this point to where I wanted to start posing questions of culture in a way that, I don't know, one, in a way that people really hadn't seen, with a couple of exceptions. The internet's favorite Slovenian trash raccoon, the philosopher Slavoj Žižek, is a pretty big influence of mine. I've read the majority of what as he says, he's written the same book like 30 times. I've read a lot of the same book written in different ways. And part of the reason why is because I had to read what he does, which is a combination of German philosophy, German idealism, Marxism, and psychoanalysis. Those are very much the intersection of my personal academic influences. So I watched a film of his called The Pervert's Guide to Ideology, starring him and it was directed by Sophie Fine, who also did a series of shorter films before that called The Pervert's Guide to Cinema. And they basically, Zizek does these these readings of culture in light of his particular sort of theoretical formations, and it's almost never what you expect. Like, yeah, he does popular films like Jaws and Psycho. Those are probably his more popular. Or They Live. His reading of They Live is really, really popular. And understanding it's brilliant. But also like television you wouldn't expect, the types of films that you wouldn't expect. I come from just like, whenever anyone is talking about the white working class or whatever, I feel like they're just talking about like my family. It was just like 24 and The Bachelor and like anything with Tim Allen in it, and like all of like the culture I grew up with is the shit that people neglected to talk. I always say this on my own content, is like, I am like, as a dyed-in-the-wool homosexual, I am a fan of a sad movie about painting lesbians, and I will watch it as many times as I need to. It's so great, but we don't need any more think pieces on the films about the painting lesbians or about a man in a hat who's sad or whatever. Like, right. I love those films. They're brilliant, but like, we need to be talking about what my good friend the Lit Crit guy and I describe as the cultural ooze of our contemporary moment, which is, you know how like chicken nuggets are made out of like this pink slime, this slurry of chicken parts or whatever. That's contemporary culture. That's the stuff that we need to be talking about. And video games are incredibly popular, and people still, there's still this sort of discourse of like there's culture, there's the stuff people like, and then there's gamer shit. And like, it's not the case anymore. Everyone plays video games. And so it led me to this point where I realized I had had hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of my life poured into like just sitting there clicking away either here or on a PlayStation, and I needed to use it for something. And it just kind of like, I'm not gonna lie, I did not think much about my YouTube channel before I started it. I knew I wanted to start one. I had been thinking about starting one for the last probably 2 semesters of my master's. And then when I got into my thesis hours and started writing my master's thesis, I was at home and I talked about all those like physical plant and delivery jobs and all those jobs I did when I was standing up and stuff. Well, as it turns out, I'm like a border collie. If I get stuck in one place for too long, I start ripping out my own fur. And so I have to go straight mania and like do all of the things at once. And so it became this outlet for me to just kind of like talk about what I wanted whenever I wanted and to do whatever reading I felt like. And then what it really turned into was like, I knew that I wanted an audience. Part of the problem with academia is that you can't really build much of an audience inside of academia. I always wanted to get a PhD because I like teaching, I like mentoring university students, and because I wanted to write books. And I felt like the way to get into publishing and to get something of an audience was to become an academic. Well, since the market has kind of exploded, it was already bad before, and then COVID happened, and there's hiring freezes, and like people were getting laid off and everything, and it forced me to think like, do I really want that, or do I want an audience? Do I want a platform through which I can spread ideas that I think are useful or at least interesting? Because at the end of the day, even if people watch my stuff and they're like, dude, what the hell are you talking about? And like I'm going to say, hey, have you ever organized your workplace? And like, because through my online content, I used to keep count. I stopped keeping count. I don't know how many people we've gotten into the IWW. But it's a lot. I've talked to students about going to graduate school, and if they're going to a graduate school that doesn't have a graduate student union, how it's going to be incredibly important that if they're interested in organizing, they need to start immediately because it's so fleeting, graduate school, because people are leaving all the time. And so I just like, let's have some fun. Let's do some interesting cultural analysis that makes people think. Let's challenge the way that we see the world. Let's start like interceding on the way that we are told to just kind of like mouth agape, like culture, like just the slurry just straight directly into my face. Let's disrupt this a little bit. And if within that time, like we can help people make some like honest gains in their workplace, well, I don't know exactly how effective it's been because it hasn't been long enough. But I do know that I've built an audience. That audience has been not only incredibly receptive, but very generous. And I love them. There's some of them are here now, and I love you all very much, but you know this. And I was able to sort of do what I wanted to do, talk about the things that I wanted to talk about, not being limited by sort of the discourses of academia, while still making some substantive, meaningful change in people's lives. And as long as that keeps happening, I'll keep making videos. Once that stops happening, I'll probably stop making videos. But until then, actually no, not even that. Well, I mean, I may stop making videos when I can get outside and have an outdoor hobby. But like, so long as it's going this way to where like even my very modest sort of success online has been incredibly motivating, just to kind of keep doing things, you know.
Yeah, well, you know, you mentioned that your channel has become an outlet for you to just do whatever you want to, talk about whatever you want to, read whatever you want to, and that's and the show I have always wanted to be able to like have a reason to call up the author of the book that I just read and like, hey, can I talk to you about this, and like ask you some questions, or the podcast that I just listened to, or the article that I just read. Like, I've always wanted to do that, and like now I can do that.
Yep.
Like anything that I want to talk about,
Yep.
I can do that, and that's been really enjoyable. I've enjoyed that a lot. I do want to plug the fundraiser really quick, folks. Just a reminder, this is the Valley Labor Report's Marathon Mine Worker Strike fundraising stream. We are raising money for the striking miners. We are not staying up for 54 hours for our own health. We are doing it for the health of the miners. So we are sitting right now at $52,500. $52,500 that we have raised. I want to try to get it up to 53,000 pretty soon. I want to try to get it up to 53,000. I think we are $470, only $470 away. We've got 23 people watching right now. Probably most of you have already donated. If you've already donated, just share the stream again, and encourage other folks to donate so that we can get up to 53,000. I really want to hit 100,000 before the weekend is over. If we can raise 100,000 for these striking miners, I will feel very good about this weekend. Of course, before the weekend started, I would have felt good if we had raised 10,000. But this is far exceeded our expectations, and that's only thanks to the generous time that people like LaborKyle, people like Kenzo, and other folks that we have had on the program. It's only thanks to them lending their audience to us, other people boosting it. Bo of the Fifth Column made a whole video about it, and his community donated a lot of the money that we have currently. So let's try to get that $470 before we let LaborKyle go. Let's try to get that $470 to get us up to 53,000. And the link to donate, as David lays in a comfortable bed, hopefully in a much-needed slumber. Yeah. David is old, so we'll let him sleep.
He should sleep if he needs it.
Do what?
He should sleep if he needs it. David, go sleep.
Yeah. Well, no, he's absolutely asleep. He is out right now.
Good.
So, and the link to donate is in the description. It's going to be the first link that you see right below the video. So make sure that you donate if you haven't, and share the stream if you haven't. Encourage people to donate. We want to try to get up to $53,000 here in the next couple of hours. We only need. Okay, we just got some money in. We just got about $15 in. So now we only need $457. So I'm gonna quit giving you the live updates, but I'll we'll come back to that here in a bit. So one of the kind of main intersections that you've kind of kept coming to, or roads that led to the intersection, is religion that you've talked about. You mentioned that your research was about the life and the person, the Apostle Paul. You've talked about how religion played a really big role in your parents' life, and obviously thus your life. Can you dig some more into like how your religious upbringing like molded you into the person that you are today, and how, because I know that you're still a religious person, and how you like, well, kind of my and like how you see yourself today with regard to faith.
Absolutely. The short and the long answer is that it's complicated. The real juice, though, like the real like the real thing that I think people need to hear when it comes to my upbringing is that I proud myself on being an effective organizer. I'm lucky enough to have some metrics to back myself up because I have terrible self-esteem. You can see my cat tree in the camera. I still see it. Whatever. I learned all of the things that I know. All of my organizing skills were refined in the actual organizing themselves, but everything I learned was growing up in a church, because I come from one of those families that we were there when the doors were open, so that was like 3 days a week usually, Wednesday, Saturday, Sunday. Wednesday for like choir practice and music. Like I come from a family of church musicians as well, because all my like my mom and my dad are from, like, my mom's from Lucasville, Ohio, and my grandparents lived in Waverly most of the time, and their church is about the size of my apartment, and it's one of those situations to where like everyone gets put in, like someone in your family gets put in piano lessons early on because someone's got to play the organ, because the organist is going to die at some point, bless her, but like she's not going to live forever. And that's just kind of a tradition. Like, now I grew up in Florida, but like it's a tradition that just kind of hung around with my family. It's a big part of like our lives was volunteering, and spending a great deal of time like nurturing volunteer organizations within the context of evangelical Christianity. Just the thing about evangelical Christianity is that those organizations are run on volunteers. Like the whole thing is run on volunteers. So you need to be able to get a whole bunch of people who don't want to do stuff for free to do stuff for you for free. And the way that I came into organizing with this goofy idea in my head that has just turned into my entire sort of organizing methodology, which is this, like, when you're building spaces for volunteers and you need to create an organization that is lasting and sustaining, you need to do 3 very simple things. You need to make people feel welcome, loved, and needed. When they're welcome, that's comes everything from basic hospitality to where like people know where they need to go. They know where they're supposed to be. When they walk into a room, at no point is someone walking into a room that you're in charge of and they look around and say, what am I supposed to be doing right now? They walk in and they know exactly that this is the right place. Someone probably greeted them on the way in. Like, it's like a good, like, you know, it's like when you're trying to pack out numbers for a good meeting, like you do the basic things necessary to make sure that someone knows that this is a good environment for me. And the other thing you do is when, like, you make them feel loved by making their problems your problems. And when the rubber hits the road and when they need to rely on you, you are the guy that they call. And that's like, the only way to do that is by building relationships with people and earning their trust through like being in community with them. And then the last part is that, like, you need to make them feel needed, which is very simply, when someone wants something to do, give them something to do. Even if it's not exactly like what they think they want to be doing in the organization, even if you do your best to try and help people find the role that they can play that complements their skill set the best. I learned all of that in church. And like that's really like bread and butter rank and file organizing. We just add all the terminology in, you know, organic leadership and shop stewards and, you know, shift leaders and like all, like, you know, it maps on so well. And like, so that's the first big part, like the practicality of organizing. Like, I learned everything in church, but more than that, like, so I consider myself a Christian. A lot of Christians wouldn't consider me a Christian, and that's okay. Like, I don't feel threatened by that at all. It's just because I don't see the applications and the influence of the teachings of Jesus of Nazareth that differentiate myself from, say, someone who is like a regular church-going sort of person. and this is not to discount anyone who is that type of a person, but for me, I always felt limited by the Protestant churches or any church's ability to make lasting concerted change in their community. And the reason why is because of limitations that they set themselves, often not because of external limitations. And I got impatient waiting around for a lot of the church people in my life to understand that the way to be in service to the least of these is it's going to mean that you need to strike out in ways that are going to make people uncomfortable, that are going to come into conflict with like the most powerful forces in our society, and that you're going to have to stand in front of workers and like marginalized people in your community in defense of them, often quite literally. And
right.
I was always struck by people's unwillingness to do that. When I was raised doing I went to a church where we did prison ministry, so I was used to going into jails and stuff like that, and it's stuff that everyone was always like, oh my God, how do you do that? I'm like, why are you not doing that? I don't understand. Right. I don't understand your Christianity, right? And so it forced me to say, at some point I need to break out and practice this in a way that's going to that is going to the idea in the book of Luke that the disciples are talking to Jesus. They're seeing all of this struggle that they go through, all of the pain and hurt in their community and in the world, and they say, teacher, you keep talking about the kingdom of God, the descending kingdom of God that's going to come and be here. When is it going to happen? Because shit sucks right now. And Jesus tells the disciples to look within themselves because the kingdom of God is within you. And that really stuck with me, especially as a younger man who was working on some personal stuff, mostly just coming out of the closet. That took a long time. I grew up in a very homophobic church, so that was a big struggle. But also, as I encountered more radical parts of Christianity, which you've got the crew coming up on the Sunday morning stream, those are my people, Magnificast and Damon, and I love all those boys. And it's because when I got to college, I encountered a group of radical Christians who were very, very left-wing politically, but who applied these teachings in a very substantive and meaningful way to try and make lasting change in people's lives. Not only did that help me realize that I don't want, nor do I need, a certain type of Christianity to reconcile itself with me, but that I'm a historical agent as a worker, and I can go out and I can make change and I can make history by working with other workers to try and gain power and exercise that power. But those, and I mean, it's the most love. I owe a debt to so many good Christians in my life for helping me come out of the closet. And people hear that and they go, that can't be true. And it's just you have believe it. When people learn about people different than themselves and they use it as a vehicle for change in their own life and in the lives of others, it has ripple effects beyond what they understand. I don't think any of my friends from my first college realized that they had that big of an impact on me coming out. But just being able to be around Christians who were not homophobic, and on top of that, who were very oriented to, I know a lot of them are academics now, and they're union. Basically, they all became union militant. We all became union militants. And
best thing to be. I
mean, well, it was the logical conclusion. It is the logical conclusion of what we were trying to do. Go to where the need is. What other oppressed majority in world history is there besides the working class? And right. It made too much logical sense And it changed the trajectory of my entire life. And now I don't go to church. My parents would really want. I go to church with my parents if I'm in town. They would really want me to. My sister would really want me to too. But at the same time, there's a reason why they don't bug me about it, and it's because they know what I'm doing when I'm not going to church. And like, would they rather me like be involved in a church at a worship service, etc.? Yes, they think that that's necessary and important, and God bless them. Like they really want what's best for me. But like, if your work speaks for yourself, like if your work is speaking for itself, then like I don't need like. And here's the thing, I don't talk much about like my personal religious beliefs or theological beliefs or stuff online, but like I found myself like immediately into like the like in the like left Christian sphere, because the second I got like the second I got in Damon Garcia's Twitch channel, for example, after we'd follow each other on Twitter or whatever, I'm like, oh, these are not only were they my people, but these are still my people. And I need to nurture this in a way that is that lets them know how much it means to me. And if I have a praxis through which that I am genuinely trying to get people to understand what they've done for me in in a humbling act of service, then like it has this like feedback loop effect to where generosity and kindness beget generosity and kindness, and like organizing necessitates organizing, and it creates this like really powerful relationship that cuts through a lot of the noise and crap that we get in our day-to-day lives that divides us and keeps us isolated and atomized in our own little space. And it's been pretty life-changing over the past like, oh shit, like 12. I started college like 12 years ago. Like that's when I started. I feel old thinking about 2007. About.
I graduated high school in 2007, so I'm right there with
Me
you, buddy.
Me too.
All right.
Look at that.
What's up?
And I know I missed
2015. So
the young gun over here. We're already the seasoned vets, like passing the torch to the newbies over here.
I mean, come on.
I know I missed a bit of that, but I just wanted to say that it's been really fascinating to see this this theme of religion, or growing up in religion, or being motivated by religion, and how that's played out in so many of the conversations we've had just since we started this thing, like, I don't know, 20 hours ago. But it's been fascinating to see how many folks that really impacted, and how many people are in organizing today, and it's sort of living out those principles that many of us were raised with. And, you know, at least speaking for myself, and I think for many others, we didn't often see it. You know, the idea of sacrificing for some worker you don't even know, but because you know it's the right thing to do, that's not something I would have learned from one of my pastors. But I do think that you've hit on something that we've talked about with several other guests throughout this, and that church is a community, and there's not much of that left.
Yeah.
I mean, there's less and less church left, but there's less and less community and real social bonds and relationships that are built on something other than transactions.
Yes.
So that really resonates with me when you talk about just the atomized, hyper individualistic society that we're living in. And I think it's great that you're doing analysis of like pop culture, so to speak. You know, I'm kind of like Jacob in that some of the like gamer culture has kind of passed me by. I feel like I'm like you. I grew up with the Super Nintendo. Still remember getting that for Christmas that year. I think I was 4 maybe when I got that. My brother's 2.5 years younger than me, and so the PlayStation 1 was what really hooked him. And boy, did it hook him. We didn't have the weekday restriction like you did. Too many hours spent on Final Fantasy.
Final Fantasy VII. It's just like, it's like, it's one of the great. I have a podcast. Anyone wants to listen to it, you can. It's called All Gamers Are Bastards. And Kay and I, my co-host, talked about the Final Fantasy VII remake recently. And we talked about like Barrett Wallace as like a revolutionary figure, and it just like it really. I've been thinking about that conversation. Shout outs to Kay. I've been thinking about that conversation and some of the things that they said. And I've also been thinking about that. See, here's the thing. I just went off on a big tangent, but here's the thing about what's interesting about we do this culture stuff. We do it for a reason, and it's because if you listen to if someone say who's a fan of my stuff, listen to that podcast, and then went and watched my co-host Kay also has a YouTube channel. Their channel is much more popular than mine, and they made a video on Judas and the Black Messiah, the biopic that's the story of Fred Hampton and the Black Panther Party, and like I did not realize how much of my political worldview I took from Barrett from Final Fantasy VII until like we recorded that podcast, and I was going back and I was reading lines of dialogue from the original game and then rewatching scenes from the remake and stuff like that, and I'm like, holy shit, the Final Fantasy VII is like, as the kids say, it's based. It is a
Isn't it amazing how much we absorb of that stuff? And it wasn't until later on that I realized, like, this is a game about militant, radical terrorists fighting this evil corporate overlord, destroying the planet.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, what is to be done is the question posed by Final Fantasy VII.
So true, so true. Truly a statement for our times. But yeah, the Final Fantasy, I think, is an interesting thing that you see these political messages in media that you don't necessarily expect to find it. Maybe many of the audience doesn't initially find it. I'm sure I wasn't the only one who didn't catch that the first time I booted up the game, and it wasn't until later when I realized the ramifications of that. And you know, you got George W. on TV talking about terrorism, and I just got finished pretending to be a terrorist.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like
a different kind, but
well, here's the thing. Like and this is why cultural critique is important. Everyone communicates in the realm of culture nowadays. Like, and it like all like to the point. And I make jokes about this in my content, and I'm making a video about it, right? I'm making a video about the movie Pitch Perfect right now. That movie about acapella.
Oh yeah, I know it.
Yeah, it's like that movie is completely demented in the best way. Like it is this like there's this really like authoritarian thing in culture nowadays to where like. We have to, and I've referred to it on like multiple platforms at this point, so everyone's probably sick of the analogy. But like, at one point in that movie, they cover the song "Magic" by B.O.B. and Rivers Cuomo from Weezer, and that song is evil. And the reason why it's evil is because it is this part of contemporary society that is oppressively, constantly telling you that you need to look inside of yourself to find the true magic of who you are. It's all about self-expression. Be yourself. Do this. Like it's about this performing these moving goalposts of like human subjectivity. This idea that like you not only can you know exactly who you are, the true essence of you on the inside, all the special stuff on the inside, but you must if you're going to live a good and happy life. And it is like I hate that, and the reason why I hate that is because, like, there's this liberal crap that we are constantly told that we need to be looking within ourselves in order to find the keys to what we need in this world, and that is patently untrue. Because I have constantly looked within myself over and over and over again, and like, sure, have I been able to suss out some stuff and, you know, sort of figure myself out a little bit. Yes, absolutely. That happens. That's human growth. Like, that's just growing up, becoming an adult, getting older, realizing the sort of your space in the world and that sort of a thing. But what we need to be learning as we get older, and this is, it's the contrast to the kind of stuff that we were raised with, which is, you know how everyone says you're just going to get older and get more and more conservative, like, which is hilarious to me because I've always been left wing and I've just like grown way left as I've gotten older. And the reason why is because I've recognized that, like, that was a load of BS. Like, the special magic is not within me because I can't make any meaningful change by myself in the world. That's not only like, I mean, we can get into the theoretical, like, reasons why politics, government, economy, the social world, culture, or history function this way, but it's much easier just to go to our lived experiences. Take it back to union organizing. In what universe can one worker change their workplace? It doesn't happen. You can change your workplace for yourself by, you know, brown nosing the boss, or doing hustle culture and trying to climb the ladder, and then immediately when you get into the ladder, turning around and shitting on everyone underneath of you. Like this is like, there's a way to do that, but it's not a way to make change for other people. That's change for yourself. So if we like, not only do we have to like push against this idea that like an ethic like of the self is like an affirmation of who we are, whatever that means, is going to make meaningful and lasting change in our community. No, it will not. And the reason why is because you just can't do it alone. I'm not going to try and find the meaning within the magic in me, because I don't think that that's very magical. Because for
magic
me,
is the connection.
I mean, like,
between others.
Exactly. Despite the magic is accomplishing an impossibility. And I talked about this I recently put out a video that has nothing to do with video games, so anyone who doesn't play games can watch it. It's on history. It's on working class history. I wrote it in a day because I had a bunch of nervous energy and I needed to put it somewhere, and I didn't feel like writing my thesis. So I sat down and I wrote a video that, again, to quote my friend the Lit Crit guy, who people should follow, by the way, it got a little manifesto-y. And the reason why is because, like, if there's anything that history has taught me, it's that there are these moments in time to where there is a disruption in the established order of things. How things not just have been and not just how they are, but how they can be. So not just looking into the past at history to understand how we got here, not just looking at our present circumstances to sort of diagnose our particular problems, but also being able to look forward and think maybe it is possible to disrupt how things currently are. Because, like, take union organizing, union density is like, we're finally on an uptick in some industries, but we're still like completely against the ropes when it comes to labor, especially in the United States. It's always been tough here, but it gets tougher and tougher because the people with all the money and the power have every means to reconfigure and reorganize themselves. Is what we always say. You have to be organized because the boss will be organized. And if you're not organized, you will lose. And like, it leads me to this really sort of this imposing idea on my worldview that, like, I need to constantly be looking within myself to see other people rather than who I am. If I look within myself to try and find my own magic, well, it's just this, like, excuse the term, it's incredibly masturbatory. It's this self-fulfilling, very, in my opinion, very empty, motionless sort of examination of the self. I can't go anywhere if I'm looking within only and purely always. I have to find something within myself that can drive me toward another person. I've talked about that in the video too, actually. The only other video that I ever made that was actually kind of personal too was, speaking of Damon Garcia, my buddy Damon Garcia, who will be on the stream tomorrow, was in this one. And I talked about this particular theological movement that was very controversial at the time. It's called Death of God theology. Basically, these guys use Nietzsche to try and understand like the essence, what does God mean in modernity, and how do we see this? How do we see theology in light of the intellectual progress that we've made in modernity? And a lot of what that becomes is it's about understanding the sense of being who you are and what that means for your position in society. It's so much less about finding out who I am just so I can understand myself, rather than finding out who I am so I can incorporate myself onto the multitude of oppressions that working people experience in our contemporary society. My experiences are not the same as someone who grew up, say, more like upper middle class or whatever. My experiences also are not the same as someone who grew up as, say, the child of undocumented farm workers, as we were talking about earlier. But work brings us to that point to where I can look within myself and not stop. I can look within myself and see the parts of me that create these like very thin, hard to see threads, but like threads that are absolutely worth following, that always bring me towards someone who has often gone through much worse things than me, when neither of us should have or needed to go through the things that we did. And so there's this like, for me, there is absolutely no alternative to other people if you want to make change in your community. It's about building relationships, and it's about empowering people to free themselves, because this isn't about me. It's never gonna be about me. It can't be about me and be a sustainable, lasting, good project. They're irreconcilable with each other. I blacked out for a second. Apologies.
No, I think you're really onto something there, and I think that it really runs contrary to the kind of neoliberal ideology that permeates throughout our society, like in a very hidden way, often in a devious way.
Yes.
Because it is all about me. Like you said, it's the inward look and pretending that you exist in a vacuum.
Yes.
And we don't. We are human beings living in a society. I know, like, there's the whole like we live in a society meme, and
we do, in fact.
We fucking do. We do. We live in a society, and that shapes who we are, what we do, what we believe. It was an accident of birth that I ended up in the South and not the North, that I ended up white and not black. I mean, there are all these different, things that happen to us, often without our own choice. In those moments when we have choice are most empowering, when it is with others and we can band together to do something.
Yes.
And I really like what you were talking about earlier, those moments in history of disruption, not just looking back to learn from it, but sometimes looking back to see, could it have been different? And as a fellow history guy, I've always been into like what if history, alternative history type things. What if Lincoln hadn't been shot that day? What if someone else had been vice president besides that bastard Andrew Johnson? What if things had taken off in Germany in 1918 through 1920, or that window of disruption where it looked like something different was going to happen or could have happened.
Yeah.
It could have. And I think that's instructive because we are trained, all of us, in so many different ways to believe that things can't be different.
Yes.
That what we have is all we can have.
Yes.
And what you live and what you see is all you're ever going to live, and which are, the only thing you're ever going to see.
Yeah.
So I think that's, one of the many reasons why studying history is so instructive, because there are so many moments that could have gone a number of directions. But you also can appreciate, if you actually have a materialist analysis, you can appreciate why did those moments unfold the way they did.
Yes.
Okay, and so how does that working right now? What are those power dynamics right now that are going to shape that moment tomorrow? So all that to say, I'm picking up what you're putting down, and I dig it, and I appreciate it.
No, it's nice that these ideas. It's crazy to me that these ideas are resonating in the way that they are.
They are. It's coming from a lot of different people who are all kind of coming to these same conclusions and same mindsets independently of themselves. I mean, independently of any one person putting it out there. And I think that's really fascinating. And I think it says we're onto something, because there's a lot of really smart people who are reaching the same kind of conclusions that you are and that we are. And I don't know, I think that means something.
Yeah. Real quick, I think that's a good place for to plug the fundraiser. We are $420 away from 53,000. So only $420 away from 53,000. We
need a very generous and affluent stoner to give us $420 tonight, right now, or this morning at 5:15. If you're waking and baking and you got plenty in the bank, 420, please donate.
Yeah, 5:15 is proper. That's the morning. We're no longer in the night. This is when working folks get up to go to their jobs. So we have properly made it through the night, I believe. I think it's safe to say that. So we only need $420 to get to 53,000. I'm sure that LaborKyle would like to see us hit 53,000 before he jumps off. So if you have not donated, then donate. If you have donated and can donate again, then donate again. If you have donated and cannot, or if you have not donated and cannot, then I implore you to share the stream, to share the donation link so that we can get up to 53,000 before 6 a.m. At 6 a.m., we're bringing on Madeline Freeman from Left Voice. She wrote an article about it, about this strike, so we're going to be talking to her. I'm looking forward to that. So let's see if we can get that $420 into the door before she gets on. The link to donate is in the description. The link to donate is in the description of the YouTube video. So check it out, share the stream, donate, share the stream.
Yeah, share it again, because if you shared stuff yesterday,
it's a new day.
It is a new day, and folks are waking up and looking at their phone. Yep. They probably shouldn't be doing that, but they are. So go ahead and share it again. Maybe it'll pop up on their feed.
Yep. I'm just like, I'm really like honored to be a part of this. Like all these people coming together on the stream, all these people coming together in person to put this together. I mean, this is really cool. We've said it a couple of times. This has really exceeded, even now, this has exceeded what we thought we'd be able to do. We thought we were going to maybe get 10,000 for them this weekend, and 100,000 is not an unreasonable goal at this point, which is just a totally different world than where we were like 3 days ago, So I really appreciate everybody coming on, and I appreciate LaborKyle. I appreciate you coming on at this ungodly hour. Of course, it's a little better for you. It's a little bit. It's like you came on at 5 your time, and we're going to be going on 7 when you roll out. So that's not as bad over there.
You started your day chatting with us, and we appreciate that. Yeah, dropping deep philosophical takes fresh in the morning, and that's what's up. And one of the great things about this event that I've already appreciated so much, besides the obvious of being able to help these miners who certainly need it, is to be exposed to all these new people and these voices that maybe I'm not familiar with. I asked Jacob earlier, like, who's LaborKyle? I'm out of the loop. fill me in. And I'm really great. It's been great to meet you, so to speak, and to hear you. And I feel honored to have been exposed to the wisdom and knowledge of so many guests over the past 20 hours or so. It's the brain power and the organizing power and experience that everyone's bringing to the table is pretty fucking awesome. And it's a testament to the strength of the movement that we have. It's easy to get down on ourselves because yes, union density is low, and the working class has been getting its ass kicked for decades, unions in particular. But look at the people we have. I mean, we have some really cool people on our side, some smart people on our side, incredibly generous people on our side.
Right.
And that really does make a difference. And, as I was talking with Kenzo earlier, when you have that community, it makes it easier to withstand the losses because you're going to lose.
Yes.
With the values that we have going up against the system that we
Yes.
have, we are going to lose.
Yes.
We have to learn from those and be prepared to lose again.
Yes.
But when we have each other's back and we know that we have brilliant people that we can bounce ideas off of and, proud on their shoulders, and then sometimes they need to kick us in the ass too.
Yeah.
And so that's really it's a fantastic thing, and I'm happy to play my small little part in that.
To that point, I got a story for you, because I
love stories.
I completely agree. I very like that. That is the precise emotional resonance that I feel in my position. For anyone who doesn't know me, I'm the secretary treasurer of the Central Florida IWW. We are a fastly growing, but still relatively new branch. Shout outs to the Central Florida Wobblies. Big Tim, y'all talked to Big Tim earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Big Tim's like a local celebrity, by the way. Like, Big Tim goes on like the big radio show here and is a stand-up, and like Tim's a beast. And we got Tim, we got Big Tim. It's pretty cool. But
That's awesome.
Yeah, that was a get, so to speak. But
hell yeah, we're pulling in the big names.
I mean, come on.
Well, literally, Big Tim.
Yeah, literally the big names.
Pulled in the big name.
Oh, and I finally got to meet the pandemic. We got so many new members that I have talked with hours on the phone and on Discord, and I have not met in person. And I finally got to meet Big Tim in person. And like, I'm a big guy. Like, I'm very thin, but like, I'm about 6'4". I'm really tall, and I'm just all limbs. And then like. But
wow, you're 6'4". That is tall.
My dad's like my giant scary firefighter dad that I was talking about is like 6'8". He's huge. I come from a line of very tall men. But Big Tim, Big Tim gave me a hug to say goodbye and picked me up off the ground completely. It was the greatest. Just held me like a baby. The greatest thing in the world. But anyways,
Big Tim is the bouncer at your Wobbly meetings.
I mean, he could be
the sergeant at arms,
right? Like, he'd probably just make everyone, like anyone who was coming to harass us or whatever, he'd just make them laugh. It'd be fine. Like,
well, that's a hell of a weapon to have.
It's the only thing what really taught me how to organize is that the first time I made a room laugh, I'm like, ooh, I liked that. Like,
yeah.
That made me happy. But so this last summer, actually, I'll start before that. In October of 2019, myself, who at the time was, what position was I organizing the department liaison? I don't even remember what my position was. Before I was in my position now, one of the greatest organizers I know, a guy named Mike Horn, he organizes for SEIU in Seattle now. But my buddy Mike and I sat down one day, and he said, hey, we should get the IWW going around here again so we have something to do in our spare time. He's like, you're a workaholic. I'm a workaholic. We want to do labor organizing. We live in service industry hell. I live in Orlando right now. And so, let's organize some small shops. And so we sat down with a few workers from a restaurant called the Dandelion Community Cafe. It's a place that my husband and I actually would frequent because my husband keeps kosher because he's Jewish, and it's vegan food. Anything that's vegan is kosher. So we would go there. It's a good place. I'd go there and get some work done sometimes. I knew a couple people. All of the very, very cool and intimidatingly cool workers there would always compliment my band tees. So I was like, I go there for a little self-esteem boost and, that sort of thing. They recognize the weird esoteric crap that I'm into. We had a meeting with 4 workers at the time. One who didn't end up working there anymore, but 3 of them who were there. Travis, shout outs to Travis, Julia, and Kyle. And we started helping them organize their workplace for the rest of that year. Bigger shout outs even to our current organizing guy, the organizing department liaison in our branch, who's the go-between between active organizing campaigns and the internal branch stuff. This guy named Ryan Riley, another SEIU organizer, another dual carder, incredible guy. Ryan, myself, and then my deputy Dave. Shout outs to Dave. A lot of shout outs. I love the Central Florida Wobblies. They're like I love them. They're like family. But we did trainings on labor law. Ryan worked directly with Travis and Julia and Kyle and the rest of the crew to start organizing their workplace. And so when COVID hit that next year, things started to get kind of nasty there. So that they had by that point had the vast majority of their workplace on board and ready to sort of like. We weren't gonna go for a contract or nothing. A small workplace. At the time, 24 employees. I believe 30 employees before COVID, and then closer to the lower 20s once COVID hit. They laid some people off. It was tough at Dandelion already. Some of them had been working there for years, and in service, like we've been in service industry. Like what Jake was talking about, working 3 years in a service industry job. I'm like, well, God bless, because that means it was a good enough service industry job to stay in for a couple of years. The reason why I jumped around a lot is because, well, like as we know, the even when the pay is good in service industry, the pay is still shit. But you do your best to go find the job that will pay you the most. That's what I would always try to just be like, go to the place. They offer to bring me in at 9. I'm making 8 at my current place. I go back to the current place and say, hey, I found a new job. They're going to pay me $1 more. I don't mind my job that much. If you want to keep me, pay me more. And then almost always, like every once in a while, I'd have a decent shift manager or whatever, and they would go to the owner, and the owner would. I worked at Panera Bread Company, and I got a job when I was in college, and I got a job at Starbucks, and I actually didn't mind my job at Panera because I had managers who left me alone, and they gave me a lot of dish shifts, and I could listen to music while I did dish. I always worked on the line, like they were, for all intents and purposes, fairly decent. Some of them were not, but like the people that I worked with, they tended to have my back. So I went to her and my manager and I said, hey, so Starbucks offered me this much money, and she said, oh shit, okay, let me see what I can do. Apparently she went to the owner of the franchise and said, hey, I'm gonna lose one of my really good workers if you don't let me pay them more. And she said, give him a dime. And so when she came to me and she said, she said, I'm so sorry. She said I could give you 10 cents. And I said, okay, you know where she can shove that 10 cents, so tell her for me where she can stick it, and I'm going to go somewhere else. But anyways, so like having this many people at this cafe who had been working there for several years was a really big deal. They have a workplace culture that like was beyond almost anything that I've ever seen. They all have brunch on Sundays together as a workplace.
Aww.
They're incredible. They're incredible people. And so around July, we started talking. They weren't getting any hazard pay for COVID. They had already had a bunch of problems. They serve hot tea at this place, and their floor was all warped in the old building they were in, and people would like trip and pour scalding water on themselves, and they'd be like, "Oh yeah, I guess you should go to the hospital." Like that kind, like really messed up stuff. They're like asking people to help design the kitchen when they pay them like $10 an hour. And it's like, bro, this is not my pay grade. Like, why are you having me? They used to promise regular raises, and apparently you'd have to chase them down, pin them down, and waterboard them to actually get excuse the analogy, and actually get the raise that they promised you. And all of that was compounded by COVID. So they were getting ready to go public. And so what we did, for those who want to see how the sausage is made, we did an assessment of the workplace. by creating a letter with a list of various problems that they wanted addressed in their workplace. That then the workers who were in support of it could sign the letter, and then we were going to do what we call a march on the boss, which you take that letter and you take a group of workers and we surprise them. You surprise the boss and you deliver the demand and you say, "Hi, we are a union now." And this is what the Dandelion workers said. They delivered a list of demands that included more regular all-staff meetings to where they could have a voice. Like they requested hazard pay. They requested a couple of things to get fixed. Like the hood was like dripping into people's food and stuff. They're like, we need to get this fixed. We love our customers. They delivered the letter of demands and said, we love you. We love Dandelion, and we want to make Dandelion better. We are a union now, so we would love if we could sit down and have an all-staff meeting. Let us know a good time for you, and then we will come and we'll all sit down and we'll talk about this. So we did that we delivered it on a Sunday. Saturday, Sunday, Monday. We delivered it on Monday. They delivered the letter around Monday at 4 o'clock, the workers. We came home and jumped on a Discord call with them to start planning out our week. We started talking about actions that we could do within the workplace under the circumstances that we went through all the scenarios. This is what you do: is we inoculated everyone, as we say in labor organizing, appropriately. This is what could happen. This is what we'll do if that happens. And then you just kind of go down the list. Well, about, I think 10 minutes after we hopped off that Discord call, maybe at 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, all of the workers at Dandelion got a message through the group messaging service app that they use saying the cafe will be closed for the week immediately. You are not allowed onto the property. If you come onto the property, we're going to call the cops. This is,
oh my God.
Yeah, this is what we call a lockout. It was not a legal lockout, but basically there's this thing called an employer lockout. Normally this is something that happens during contract negotiations. By the time you get to the end of a contract negotiation, if the workplace and their attorneys think that they've reached an impasse, that they've put out the best contract that they can give, and the workers still aren't taking it, well, then they can pull the point of production by shutting down the workplace and locking out the workers. Normally, you need to be in contract negotiations to do that. You can't just lock out workers for union organizing. So we started planning pickets. You're going to lock us out. Well, we're going to go and stand in front of Dandelion during the lunch shift and the dinner shift, and we're going to tell the customers what you're doing. We did that. We threw it together. Like I say they did. I did whatever I could for triage. I got exposed to COVID on the second day of our picket. So I only managed to go to one. So I was stuck in this chair coordinating best I could. And I'm the paper pusher and the money guy. So that was fine. And I do some graphic design stuff too. And I print and I managed to do plenty, but it was a chaotic week of picketing. We showed up every single day. And then we found out at the end of the week that they decided to close the business for good. Rather than have one meeting with workers who had been working with them for years, rather than listen to them. This was all what they were asking for was an all-staff meeting. Bernie Sanders meme. I am once again asking for an all-staff meeting. Like, that is all it was. And they decided that it was more important, this family workplace that they have. Well, screw the family. We're going to shut the whole thing down, and we're going to close permanently.
Ditching the family, we're moving to another state and finding a new wife.
Right, basically. And so that was really heartbreaking. They went nuclear. Tank your entire business because you're too much of a wuss to sit down and have an all-staff meeting with the people that you've been screwing over and doing wage theft against for years. This is all to say.
They're customers too. I
Yes.
mean, this sounds like the type of place where you have regulars and you have these longtime staff who've
Yes.
built relationships with those customers and
Yes.
get to know, a little bit about their lives, and they check and ask about their mama and them, and to go nuclear like that on such a low, I mean, the workers didn't even pull out the guns. Like they're just asking for a fucking meeting.
Mm-hmm. The high road,
that's wild.
every time. And this is why I wanted to bring this up. Not only do the Dandelion workers, they called themselves the Seeds. That's what they called their union. Not only do they still have Sunday brunch, Sunday dinner, I think as they call it. Not only do they still have Sunday dinner every week, but I was taught a lot of things by that campaign. It was life changing, and I don't know if they believe me because I talk about it so much, and they're just like, was it really that big of a deal? Yes, it was that big of a deal, and the reason why is not only did I learn like there is an incredible amount of value if we are going to help workers organize themselves within their shops. The primacy has to be placed on the education and training and organizing of those workers for themselves rather than for some sort of, like I can't come in and organize their workplace for themselves, mostly because I'm not paid to do it. Like I don't have time. And also like that's not what's going to be able to make lasting change. And the small amount of investment as individual organizers that our branch was able to make for these workers who many did not know us, many were not holding red cards, were not members of the IWW at the time, to be able to just like drop pretty much everything that we were doing and to be able to focus on trying to get as much like resources, energy, whatever contacts we have, whatever contacts with other unions we have. Shout outs to the UAW who cut a check. Shout outs to Faculty Florida members who showed up to pickets and cut checks individually. Incredible amount of solidarity for workers who are almost always forgotten, when it comes to the labor movement. And I'm not even just I'm not talking. I know that Unite Here and UFCW organize food workers and service workers. My city is filled with tiny restaurants with small business tyrants running them and running over people just like us, our age, our level of education, all like we're constantly making them feel like crap for like literally keeping their business open. And I was so impacted by that campaign because it shows that, like, I mean, to quote Sarah Nelson, solidarity as a force stronger than gravity, because it is able to, as we were talking about before, it is able to defy your expectations for what like is, has, and always shall be when it comes to worker action in our communities. Florida is a place to where like we do not have power. We're in the South too, but it is so tough in so many places in the states that we live in. It's like people don't want to get started because they understand, they've seen what's happened. Like and there's one of the most powerful things that's happened, and that illustrates my entire point instead of my weird ramblings, is that and shout outs to our organizing department liaison again for this. We're working on organizing Cap Taiwan Public. We're organizing a captioning service, mostly for the elderly. Basically, they're technicians to where they caption phone calls for people who have difficulty hearing. And we're also working on organizing some other sort of smaller shop restaurant kind of places. And the thing that has been really remarkable is that despite like the Dandelion campaign, I was shooting out press releases, and God bless the Orlando Sentinel, who their union is going through shit right now because they're going to get sold to venture capital or whatever. We were out there at their rally, but like I'm in the Orlando Sentinel, basically calling Chris, the owner, a coward. Like they like it's all over the place, and so people look at what happened in our most recent campaign, and they go, doesn't seem like things went very well there. And it's like, well, no, they didn't. Right. No, this is why we inoculate each other to what possibly could happen. But don't take it from us. Talk to the Dandelion workers. They have been incredibly generous in their willingness to go and talk to other places that we've been organizing and say, yeah, I lost my job. I would do it again. And the reason why is because I have been bumping around from shitty service job to shitty service job. And part of the whole thing about organizing this workplace was that, yeah, I could just go get another job. Why can't this one be better? Why do I have to constantly bump around, trying to just with my hand out, please, sir, may I have some more? Rather than saying, I like the people I work with here. This job's not that bad. It could be so much better. And the way to make it better is to stand with my coworkers and make demands. Because we keep this place open. We are Dandelion. We are our workplaces. The boss is not the work. They have you think that they have your best interest in mind. If they had your best interest in mind, it would already be your workplace. Here's the thing.
Right.
It is a hypocrisy that goes to the very core of what it means to employ other people. Here's the other big thing, and I saw Big Tim reference this sort of a little bit. These people who own this cafe were known as progressive beacons in the community. There was a Black Lives Matter sign on the door.
Oh, of course there was.
Black Lives Matter unless they work for you. Because they had black employees. Black lives only matter when it can serve your bottom line. If that is not if that is not a description of the level of hypocrisy that you work with in union organizing, I don't know what is, because there is no way that you can reconcile those ideas while still treating your workers this way. There's no way that you have a fair and equitable workplace, because if it were, it would be. You would have already made it that way. The only way that we can actually make lasting concerted change in our workplaces, and that way that change can go on and affect other people, is by striking out now, figuratively, not literally. The idea that a loss is just a loss, not only is that not really sustainable, considering, just as you said, we are not only do we lose all the time, we are going to lose more. It is going to happen,
right,
because we are up against the most powerful people in the entire world. These employers have everything, and we have nothing besides ourselves, each other, and solidarity. But here's the thing. Sometimes you win. And even when you don't win, workers will still show. If you show up for other people, if you let them know that their problems are your problems, you give them something to do, and you make them feel welcomed in your union, in your space, in whatever, and you organize, and you do the thing that you don't want to do, which is admin, email, spreadsheets, all of the boring stuff that just does not sound fun. Well, yeah, it's not the most fun thing in the world. It's basically my job. But if you want a worker, even though that they struck out in their workplace, they fought for what they wanted, and they lost, they will still come and encourage people to do the same, because they understand now that losses are an inevitability in this work, but the potential for gains makes every loss worth it, because we can have each other. We also let them know that if you are going to get fired, well, we're going to do our best to look out for you. We're not a big union. We don't have a ton of resources. We can raise some money online. We did that. We got them a good hardship fund. Been cutting checks from it ever since. Feels really good to do that. But we were able to make lasting change in our community, not because we won, but because we came and we showed up for workers when it counted and when it mattered. And this is not about winning right now. This is about changing people's lives so we can win later. It's not going to be enough to just I want to organize this workplace and I want it to be this way, and good job everybody, now we can go home. The amount of work that's to be done necessitates making new organizers. And you don't become an organizer by being a passive agent in an organizing project or in your workplace. You do it by empowering workers, by educating them, by showing them that you're going to be there when it matters. And right. I just it makes all of the struggle, all of the difficulty, all of the stress, it makes every single inch of it worth it. And I don't know what I was originally trying to say.
Well, I want to thank you for sharing that story. That was great. And like you said, no, you didn't win the staff meeting, much less the actual demands. But I imagine those folks felt power They felt a sense of power and connection that they hadn't felt before. Something that's going to stick with them, because I think those bonds you build and struggle far supersede even often your own blood.
Yes.
And so I think that was a great story, and I appreciate what your chapter is doing and what I know Wobblies are doing everywhere, and others too. That it can't just be the coal mines, and it can't just be the big Amazon warehouse. So many of our brothers and sisters are suffering under these small business tyrants. Right. The family business, the ones that are so small that all those rules don't apply, all those laws don't apply. They're the exceptions. And so many of us have been in those situations, and to see organizers take a chance on folks like that is really inspiring. And what you close with about the strike, or the hardship fund, and letting them know that y'all are going to have their back, I think that's kind of what we're doing with this event here. What you're helping us do is that these miners know that, hey, we got some money coming for you guys.
Yep.
Because other people thought enough of your struggle to chip in a little bit to help you.
You're escalating. We are going to come and meet you. Right? That's good organizing too, is the thing, right? That like when someone, we were talking about at a committee meeting this past week, where we want to pack out the next meeting that we have with one of the workplaces that we're organizing, because they feel we've been doing flyering, and they've gotten some new inquiries from members, and they've gotten some new people in their sort of group, and so they are feeling very empowered right now. And so how can we escalate to match how they feel, so they feel powered to take their project forward? And it's like, absolutely, that's what y'all are doing. That's what this is for. This is to say, okay, if you're doing this, your community and the people, the labor movement has your back, and that we're going to make sure that you're taken care of the best that we can. It's not going to be, it won't be, we can't pay everyone's salary. We can't but we can take care of each other. And people
can try.
Yeah, and when your back is against the wall, I don't need someone to pay my salary. I just need someone to just stand next to me. I need solidarity. Some people, and it may not work for everybody, and that's fine. But the vast majority of the workers that I come with, they've never asked for much. We're programmed and trained not to ask for anything, and so they don't ask anything of their union either. And so we just have to it's just not only am I following your lead, but I have got your fucking back. I'm standing right here, and then that's what y'all are doing, and it's incredibly important, and it's also bringing local struggle out past the locality. Ain't no one talking about it. People don't talk about the shit that we do, and it's because they don't have to.
Right.
It's not what gets them clicks. It's not what makes them news. It doesn't accomplish the things that their bottom line need, and so they won't talk about labor struggle. And so we have to value this is why I blow up y'all's spot all the time. We have to value the resources that we have, and we have to pour into them. And we just have to let people know that we care. And the only way that I know to do that is through action. I talk plenty,
Right. Yeah, well, and I think, all three of us having a show, I think we talk plenty, but I think that all three of us also do plenty as well, I'm just so happy to hear about what y'all are doing in Central Florida. That is awesome. And I hope that one day we're able to emulate that here in Huntsville. I think we've been chartered longer than Central Florida, but I don't know, man. We've hit a rut in Huntsville with the IWW branch, and it's been hard to get campaigns. Yeah. We've got members. We've got 30-something folks that are on the roll that I know that I've talked to that are paying dues, but we just don't have any campaigns. Yeah. And that's what you need for a real to activate your membership, because we've got people that want to do something, and we just haven't found anything to plug them into yet. And there's always, I'm always thinking of things that I can do, but there's only so much that I can do, right? And there's only so much that Adam can do, and you know, but yeah, I'm really inspired by what y'all are doing down there in Central
Bring us
Florida.
to a meeting too. If you ever want to have us, if you ever want me to come to a meeting, and if people want to like chat, because I don't have the answers for anybody, much less myself. Like that's the healthy, humble attitude to have with this stuff. But it's also just true. I don't have the answers, but like good brainstorming sesh or something like that. Yeah. We should talk. I think I have y'all's shirt too.
Yeah, you do.
It's dope.
I remember mailing it to you.
That thing is so cool.
It is a badass shirt.
So
I think I'm gonna be wearing it today when I get a shower and put a new set of clothes on.
Well, please keep us posted on the chapter and everything you're working on and everything your local's working on. Definitely keep us in the loop.
Absolutely.
All right. LaborKyle, do you have any closing thoughts for us?
I just want to thank you boys for what you're doing. I want to thank everyone who's donated, and that you just like if you feel I want you to know that if you feel something in your belly, this like exciting, nervous feeling right now as you're watching what the miners are doing, this kind of fear that's tickling at you, but one that's kind of like, you feel like you're about to go on a roller coaster, you're about to jump off something high or something like that. Yeah. Don't forget it. That's the feeling that you get when it's what we call a precipitous situation. It's very high risk, high reward, and this is what being in the labor movement and like trying to wield it with some teeth actually means. It's about putting in the work necessary now that something, likely after you're not around to see it, likely, like something that the fruit of your labor is going to be harvested by somebody else. And like that little feeling in your gut that's telling you that this is exciting and scary is pointing you toward something really special. And if you ever need advice or are interested in organizing your workplace and don't really know where to start, you can always message me. I'm LaborKyle on Twitter. My DMs are open. You can message the Central Florida IWWCFL on Twitter or IWWCFL@gmail.com. You can send us an email. I'm helping someone organize in the Midwest right now because I went on a podcast and I got tagged in Discord because someone needed help. It's very rewarding work. It's hard, but like it's made me a better person doing labor organizing, and like it's about trusting the exciting but scary feeling that you have within yourself to take a leap and strike out on behalf of other people. I'll take any amount of my day to help someone figure out what that means for them. So, but otherwise, just thank you boys for what you're doing. It's really important. I had miners in my family, Eastern Kentucky fucking coal miners, and like just as I come from the world of working stiffs, and I had never seen nothing like this. It's something's happening, and I will be around to hear it because I will be listening to the Valley Labor Report. Great program with cool hats.
Thank you very much.
What can we say? Up in Huntsville, we pride ourselves in having good graphic design. So. Yeah. All right, brother. Thank you so much. I enjoyed it.
Thank you, boys. I'll see you soon.
Thanks.
All right, man.